Yeah, what's up, man?
How you doing?
How you doing, man? Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming out. And we can just get to it. For artist to artist, I'm an artist, you're an artist.
Right.
I know what you had to go through to get to where you are.
Yeah.
And I just want to know, like, where does your passion for music come from?
Just my parents, honestly. Like, we have music in the house growing up all the time, so it's been like a thing that I've always wanted to do. I grew up listening to Michael Jackson, and I always wanted to be like Mike. So it's like,
I like that.
My passion comes from seeing Michael Jackson do it and seeing it at the ultimate level, and just trying to be able to touch the people as well as he was.
That's dope. That's dope. Yeah, I grew up listening to Mike a lot too. My dad played the Thriller record so much, like so he was a big influence. I used to do like little dance videos and dance around, so I understand where that comes from.
What's your favorite Mike album?
Damn, that's a tough one.
Come on.
It's gonna be Thriller, dude.
Okay,
it's gonna be Thriller.
Continue this interview. We can keep going because
it's gonna be Thriller. If I had to pick one, it's gonna be Thriller. So,
Absolutely.
Okay, there we go. That's all right. So if I want to think about it, like I know what I've gone through. I've had to push really hard to get into the spaces we've gotten in, and I know the work ethic it takes.
Yeah.
For you, I know you had to overcome some adversity. Talk to me about that a little bit. What was it like on your side of the world, getting to be to where you are now, and what it actually took?
Well, coming up, I grew up in the church. I learned early on just the tools of talking to God and turning to God whenever there are any type of problems, like, and giving it to God. It's been, as you know, way rougher than easier, you know. But the payoff is phenomenal once you get to that place where you're comfortable being yourself 100%. It doesn't come easy. It was a lot of adversity coming from Jersey to pick up and go, not really knowing a lot of people in LA. But through my faith, I was just able to lean on that and rest in that and just know that I was always protected and always okay. So I was just able to just constantly move through the guiding light of the Lord.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes,
that's
sir.
Dope, man. I'm glad you're there. And learning a little bit more about you, that's awesome. And for me, my mom was a big influence on me in many different ways. But we had the opposite story here, whereas my mom didn't push my career early. She thought it was more of a detriment.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what are you doing? You can go to law school, you could do all these other things while I choose music. And I had to prove that music was gonna be something for me before I could actually take it on for real.
Yes.
So for you, I know your mother pushed you to like be committed. Be committed to what you were doing.
Listen,
so was it for music or is this just overall?
It was just overall.
Okay.
So my parents always taught us to give 110% whatever it is that we put our foot towards. I thank the Lord for the parents I had, because my mom was super understanding. My dad, as understanding, but just was kind of a little more, I want things to go a certain way, black and white, like you need a job, because he was so used to the things that he grew up with.
Oh, like
growing structure, 9 to 5, come home, like wife at the house with the kids. That's the life that he aspired for. And I just wanted a little different. Not saying there's anything wrong with that. I saw my future being a little left of center to make that the new norm. I thank them for just being the amazing parents that just gave me that little push that was like, you know what, whatever it is, as long as you support it and put your best foot forward, we'll get behind you and push that forward. And I can't tell you how much of a importance it is for that support system, because I'm able to rest a lot easier just knowing that I have somebody that has my back at the end of the day.
Do you think they play a role, or like where do you draw your music information from?
From any and everywhere. So they absolutely played a role, but I draw my inspirations from people that inspired me, that came before me, and a lot of the new people that have come after I started making music. I just love the idea of having an idea and putting it out into the universe and putting it out into the world.
Your stories, your experiences, like what you've been through, how do you feel like that connects to the younger generation, that connects to young adults? And how do you connect to young adults, and like how do you speak to them?
I speak to young adults by just being that same person. I try to be a mirror of the things that are going around me, and a vessel to just say, hey, I went through this, so you don't have to go through this. Like, there's a quote Hov. But honestly, it was just getting the certain tools growing up from my parents, the go to the Lord with your issues. There really isn't anything too big that you can't accomplish. Those little tools that I had established early on helped me get to the place I'm at now.
It's cool, right? So I heard that you've wrote songs to pay for your rent.
Absolutely.
Explain that to me, because it's interesting, because like LA has this thing, there's so many of the, like, there's some of the coolest stories about like how people overcome and how people get to where they're going.
Yes.
And Cali, I've heard some of the best stories. Like I've had Philip Lawrence telling me like Bruno's story of like
Yes.
sleeping on floors in studios, doing what they got to do. And I know what that's like. Like you really have to push and go hard.
Yes.
So what was that like?
It was amazing, to say the least. It was, in retrospect, it was the necessary tools I needed to get out of the place that I was to get to where I was going.
Okay.
So I learned early on that if you don't start to appreciate the things that the Lord's already blessed you with, you won't get the things that you want. So I started to look at my situation as, yeah, this currently isn't exactly where I foresee myself in the future, but I'm not living for right now, I'm living for tomorrow. And I believe in myself, I believe in my God, and I believe that I'm getting exactly where I want to be with diligence, with prayer, with persistence. And I never took no for an answer. So by the grace of God, I was able to cut out the noise. Like the noise is, you come to LA and nobody is genuine, and it's people are this and people are that. And I didn't want to intake that and believe that and use that as the thing that I fell on. I was like, no, people are people, but I'm going to get to where I want to get to because I believe in me. So through the faith in myself, I was able to meet my brother Scott and my brother Ali and my brother Dre, Triangle Park. They're a collective. They were actually from Philly.
Okay.
And that was like 5 minutes from my crib in
That's
Jersey.
dope.
So I met them out there, but I didn't know them until I moved out here. And I believe that God places everyone in your life for a reason. So Scott opened his house to me and said, hey, you're talented, I believe in you, and I see you're moving around. You can stay here and crash on the floor if you need to for however long you need to get yourself together. You just have to write a song a day. So I was like, I'm writing about 5 or 6 songs anyway, so thank you for giving me a free place to stay. And I just adapted the idea of there is one way to do something, but there's 100,000 ways to get to a final goal. It was never in my plans to come out to LA to go sleep on the floor, but my plans were to come out to LA and make it happen. So if it costs sleeping on the floor, I'll do that for however long it takes to get me to where I need to go.
Now that's something I know of personally, and like the mental fortitude it takes to be in that kind of space. Do you feel like you always had that along the way, or did you feel like there were times where you was rattled by what life was throwing you? You know, because you know the industry is like waves. It's highs and lows.
Yes.
You know, so when you're in we know the highs. Like
Yes.
the highs is the easiest part. The highs is the Instagram highlights.
Yes.
You know, so what do you feel like were your lows? What were those moments where you feel like, hey, man, I'm kind of struggling and I don't know?
I think that every day is a high and a low. There are peaks and valleys in your days. It was, if you're talking a specific time period of lows for me, I can't even say that this was when I was at my lowest. It was just, I think I've always had the mental fortitude to just, if it gets too crazy, take a step back,
Okay.
breathe a little bit, and pray. And listen, it's one thing to pray and actively still panic, but it's also a thing to pray and stop and listen to the Lord speak and then get instruction to move. So I've always been a person that kind of always wanted to do things my way. Like I didn't like asking for help. I grew up and got a job at 13 at Burger King because I didn't like asking my parents for money, which forced me to then, oh, well, I don't need to ask my parents for permission to do this if I get this. And there are rules and orders to things, but I was like, I can beat this level by doing this way. It was honestly my will of wanting to prove to myself that I could do it, and the support of my family that kind of like pressed over. Whenever I had a hard time, it's like, I'm having a rough time, sort of, but I have people back home that love me and believe in me. So although I'm feeling this right now, I can't put this on them or on anyone else. I gotta figure out myself.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like not leaning into your support system too much, but more so, I believe that your support system kind of instilled that in you early
Absolutely.
enough, so that you had that when
You
you weren't around.
knew the tools to reach when you needed it. So it's not waiting around and calling up my people 24/7 to just be like, hey y'all. actively pursuing what you need to do, but then at the same time knowing in the back of my head, I got 4 people back home, more than 4 people, but 4 people with my last name that are supporting me with 100%, and I'm doing the same with them with whatever they're doing.
And that's awesome. So when you find that, like, we live in a world right now where things are kind of hectic, things are crazy. It's always kind of been like that. And do you feel that your support systems puts you in a space to not feel isolated?
I think that there's always places where you can feel isolated. It's just about talking about it and feeling comfortable enough to speak about whatever it is that you're going through. Like as a songwriter, you can relate to constantly being internal with everything. Exactly. So we're constantly holding the mirror up to ourselves, constantly critiquing, constantly talking about our insecurities to show the next person that, hey, I'm going through this too. I think in doing music, it humanized me in a way that was kind of like, this is something that I want to do and I'm going to be who I want to be, but I'm not anybody special. Everybody can be Aunt Clemons, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And can't at the same time.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, that's going to poke out. I just think through everything you've been through, because I know you've been through the wave, you've been through the complete wave of the industry, and you've seen things that a lot of people have never seen. Yeah. Like that's just what it is. When you're in these spaces and you're creating and you're in this space, how do you feel like your music or what you create speaks to the youth to let them know that they can unapologetically be themselves and be open and that they're not alone, they're not struggling?
I resort back to the why. So the why is something I talk about a lot. Like I'm very much invested in my why. I know why I wake up. I know why I do the certain things that I do. So when I'm in these rooms and I'm amongst the people I've always looked up to, I revert back to, okay, well, what are we here to do and why have they called on me? Like the times where I tried to be like them or tried to do a artist-like song, never really land. And I learned that they just want you. They want whoever you are, uniquely you. And the times where I started to believe in myself and started to come into my own like sound and my own identity, that's when a lot of the people I was always reaching out to started reaching out to me. And I was like, man, you know, maybe my why can help someone else like figure out their why so that they never have to question themselves ever again.
Oh, that's awesome. Have you ever considered or have you ever spoken to a therapist?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And what was that experience like?
It was phenomenal. It was uncomfortable, but I find comfort in uncomfortable places. So I think I did that at an early age, just trying to figure out why I'm feeling certain things so that I never had to be put in a certain situation ever again. You get your heart broke, you try not to put yourself in a position to get it broke again. But even if it happens again, you know how to handle certain things. So it was about the setup, the tools that I was introduced to as a youth, for believing and fulfilling the ideas that I had in my head, but kind of reverting back to, well, my parents taught me this, my dad taught me this, my mom taught me this, life taught me this. Maybe if I take a step back and listen to the mistakes of the people before me, I won't have to make those same mistakes.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I love how much you lean so much into that support system.
Yes.
Do you find that to be like a blessing? Because a lot of people don't have that same level of support system to push through and go through things. Like let's say, like outside of the music space, like outside of your career, what was it like growing up with your parents? What was it like? Did you always feel like you could talk to them about things that not pertaining to your career? Like could you come to them when you felt like you were struggling in spaces that weren't scholastic or anything like that?
It was amazing. It was my mom, the open-armed, like caring, nurturing person that was always pushing us to just speak our minds. Like she was very avid about letting her know or my dad know at all times how we felt, when we felt, and why we felt the certain things that we felt. And then we also had a big ear for listening to whatever it was that was getting told to us. So you'll find the answer in which the question you're looking for by listening a lot more times than by speaking. So I learned at a young age that there's nothing wrong with being not okay. Just let someone know so that they can help you and maybe give you some tools to then lean on later in the future.
And did you ever have an opportunity, like growing up, to kind of pass those really great lessons on to your peers, to your friends that are around you, because they wouldn't have that same support system? So how do you feel like, have you ever had an opportunity where a friend maybe came to you in a specific space and some of your upbringing and your background and what you went through helped them through a tough time?
Absolutely. So I can't think of a specific, like, one incident, but the blessing of the friends that I have, we are not afraid to let each other know how we feel. So growing up on the East Coast, you got a thick skin just off the rip. Like, you know how you feel, when you feel. We're very passionate about our teams and our players. We're passionate about the people that we believe in, the music we listen to. And whenever there's an issue with anything, my friends and I always converse with each other like, yo, how do you handle this? Like, they're not afraid to bring things to me. I'm definitely not afraid to bring things to them. Like, hey, I'm going through this. How did you handle this? Or how would you handle this if you were in my shoes? And I kind of just take inventory of all the different advices I can get and try to make the best result based off of the belief from my friends. And like I said a little earlier, a lot of the tools I believed in earlier, I'm never afraid to share information. So whenever anybody has a question, I'm proactively about finding an answer and a result. I'm a result-based person.
That's awesome. That's dope. Like, because I'm from the East Coast, so being from New York,
right,
you just kind of got this push through a grind mentality.
Absolutely.
And that's always in air. That's always in the space. New York is go go go.
Yes.
And being having the opportunity to have toured the country and been in a lot of places, I know that mentality, that type of person, thrives everywhere.
Absolutely.
But it also comes with a cost at sometimes. Being an African American male and being in the spaces that you're in, do you ever feel overwhelmed in a space where you don't feel like you have a voice, or you don't feel like you can speak openly about your struggles?
I never find that there's a time where I can't speak openly about my struggles. I feel confident with myself and comfortable with myself that I'm able to articulate how I feel when I feel. So early on, I learned that life isn't fair. My dad would always tell me that there's certain things that your sisters are going to get away with that you won't. Like, I can't beat my sister up if she punches me in the face. It's just, that just is what it is, you know? But it's like, based off of the example that I had before me and the tools I had growing up, I was just able to take certain situations as they came and address them as such. If I'm uncomfortable in a situation, I know my appearance. I know I'm a tall, 6'5" black man, and I may be intimidating to people. So I try to diffuse situations way before anything escalates. I go out of my way to make sure that people feel comfortable at all times, so that if ever I felt backed into a corner, I have no problem in communicating, hey, I don't feel too comfortable with this, or maybe we should go about this in a certain way, because like I said before, I'm a result-based person. So how do we get to the result that is across the board, that's across the board, perfect for everyone, and not just for me?
Okay. And I know you've acknowledged your issues, you've acknowledged your struggles. How do you feel like those struggles that you've been through, how does that help you being publicly open about those struggles? How do you feel that helped you? And then also, how do you feel it helps others?
Being open about my struggles helped me just be able to breathe in the morning. Like, it's a great thing to wake up and not have a lot of stress because you're internalizing something and there's something you have to say and you just don't. I'm so thankful. Like, I've said it at least 15 to 16 times about my upbringing, but I'm so thankful to be raised with the knowledge of who Christ is. So I don't really have to wake up and worry about anything. Struggles, there are going to be times where you don't have money. There's going to be times where you're not feeling the best. But at my core, I know that I'm loved. So I'm able to kind of press through that. And the second half of your question, I think I'm able to help others with their struggles by just being a person to show them, hey, if I did it, you can do it. There's nothing too different about me except from where I lived and where you lived. And our stories are very similar. Like, not just you, Dave, but like anyone.
Anyone, just people.
I just try to relate to as much people as I possibly can, because I would want somebody that I looked up to do the same with me. And a lot of the people that I've been pleasured to be in a room with have. Like, anytime I've ever asked anybody that I looked up to for information, it hasn't been like, it's always been open-armed, always very vocal, very you should do this and you'll get this result.
That's cool. Now you've been able to like work with some giants, like
Yeah.
you've had the elephants in the room.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what you've done. When you first stepped in those rooms, how'd you feel?
I'm the same way my first time and my last time. It's hard for me to not be me. So if I'm excited, you'll see I'm excited. If I'm a little upset, you'll see I'm a little upset. But to be in a room with the people I always looked up to is a dream come true. And I always go back to, I could be working at Red Lobster right now. So it's a blessing to even be sitting here talking with you. So I keep that in the back of my head always, that it's good and it's amazing right now, but it won't be like this forever. So cherish the moments and allow people to know how you feel, when you feel, because you might not have an opportunity to say it again.
I agree with that. Living in the present.
Absolutely.
Living in the present and making sure that you're I guess I would say just appreciating everything that you've been blessed to have.
Living
even
for
through
the future, but existing in the present.
Living in now.
Absolutely.
Just be the present.
Yes.
Just be. I totally agree with that. So, in essence, with young adults, they struggle with a lot nowadays.
Yes.
You know, we got social media. We've got a million things that kind of ping and pivot and make them go in a lot of different ways. Where do you feel like your voice sits in that space, as far as like? And what are your opinions on it, and also what do you do to ensure that you're pushing out the messages that you want to push out in the correct way?
That's an amazing question. Like, thank you. One, like I love talking to my sisters about this all the time. I'm a big brother, so innately I try to just lead by example. But for a while, I'd wake up and the first thing, eyes closed, look at my phone, go to Instagram, and I'm scrolling, and I don't even realize that I'm half awake just doing this. I wake up every day and I open my Bible up before I do anything, before I answer a text message, before I answer any emails, any calls, any checking on Instagrams. I'm in my Bible. And after the Bible space, I go meditate. I actually work out and then meditate, and then I'll look at my phone. So it's a good hour to 2 hours in my morning where it's just myself, my thoughts, the Lord, and clearing my mind before intaking. A lot of the pages I used to follow just because I wanted to be in the know, I don't follow anymore. Nothing wrong with those pages. I grew up in a house that was built in love, but there was also dysfunction in the house. So I don't like yelling. I talk loud all the time if I'm excited, but I don't really like too much animosity. So I try not to intake that through my social media. If you look at my Instagram, a lot of it is me praising the Lord and me just showing thanks and appreciation to all the blessings that I have. But you won't see me online commenting negatively, just doing anything that's out of my character, because I try not to project the things that I don't want to intake. So I make sure the things I'm following are in line with the things that I want in my future. The people that I'm following also know that. So the people that know me, that I'm following, know that if it's something that I see that I don't want to see, I try to block it. But I have no problem with turning my phone off. Like, I'm not stuck to my phone so much that it's, oh, what's going on here? What am I doing here? Oh, I didn't get any likes. Like, I could care less.
Do you consider yourself a mental health advocate?
Yes, I believe so.
And how do your daily beliefs fall in line with that?
Every day is a blessing. So every day is an opportunity for you to start anew. And the problems of yesterday, although they may be heavy and weighing on you, they can be left in yesterday, because we have a choice. You have a choice to choose to be happy, and you have a choice to choose to be other. Like, although circumstances will come that are dark, that are hard to understand, it's still a choice of how you want to react. So I try my best to be happy. Like, it is a choice. Like, I try to be lighthearted. I choose happiness over being sad because it just feels better. You feel light. You feel, I think, how we're intended to feel, like when you're just happy. I don't like me when I'm sad. I don't like me when I'm upset. I know there's times where I get sad and upset, but I fall back into my beliefs, and it helps me get through those times. I talk to people, that helps me get through those times. I lean on our art. I'm able to express it through my songs, through drawing, through dance, through whatever outlet I want to use just at that time, whatever medium, to just express. Like, I am a full advocate of making sure that your mental is intact, but then also expressing. Like, so however your outlet is, whatever your outlet is, however you have to get your message across, it's important to tell people how you're feeling.
That's dope. That's dope. That's real dope. Because as a Buddhist myself, you speak into the sense of struggle.
Yes.
And struggling itself is inevitable.
Yeah.
So it's not really, the struggling isn't ever going to stop. It's really your perception of it
The struggle, yes.
and what you do and how long you consider to stay out of it, and that's your choice.
Yes.
And we know mental health, sometimes you don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in the space of not having a choice, what advice would you give to a young adult that, hey, may have this friend that came to them in this space and they don't have that choice? What they're dealing with isn't something they chose or didn't choose.
Right.
You know, what advice would you give them in that space per your experience with struggle?
That love is the answer. Whatever it is that you're going through, I try to let all my friends know, even people on the street, that, hey, I love you. Like, regardless of if I know you, I choose to love you, then choose to hate you. Like, because to hate you is to hate myself. So I'm like, I preach love 24/7. It's easier said than done. It goes back to the choice of choosing happiness, but I choose to show that you can be in the midst of adversity, you can be in the midst of a struggle and still find those little moments of, yes, I am here. Yes, I am present. Yes, I am breathing. So I have a chance to make it something more than the circumstance right now.
As far as you know, what are some of like the resources you feel have either helped you or you feel like you've come across, you're aware of, that if you came across a friend struggling, what resources could you would recommend to ping them to and give them a little bit of light in the darkness?
Well, I always start with your relationship with God, whichever it is. It's just like, do you have a relationship with God? But then past that, physically, like, do you work out? How do you let go of steam when you get it? I exercise and hike every morning just to get my adrenaline going.
Same.
I'm trying to get my R&B body right. But it's a great outlet to just be one with my feelings. If I'm going through it, I can run. If I'm chilling, I can walk. And through my brother Scott, the person that let me stay on his floor, he kind of introduced meditation to me. A huge tool. I meditate every day, and it's amazing to just have at least 5 to 10 minutes where it's nothing, where it's just you and your thoughts and being present, because we constantly are distracted and we're constantly thinking about the future. It's imperative to be present at least once a day, because you never know what can happen in the present. It's a gift.
That's awesome. It's funny because when you speak, it's cool because I'm in my band with my brother, and you remind me of him so much.
Oh, word, that's tight.
He leads with God the same way you lead with God.
Yes,
and
sir.
Just your mannerisms, everything you're saying. So I'm just looking like, wow, it's like talking to him right now. So that's cool. That's why it's so cool, and it's just off the cusp a little bit.
Yes, sir.
And I just think, for you, I think you have an opportunity to be a huge voice. Growing up, I didn't always feel like there were voices for mental health for African Americans in general.
Yeah.
Being a black guy in the space, we don't, we got to be tough. We got to push through everything. Life is thrown at us from an early age.
Yes.
You know what you have to deal with and what you have to overcome. You overcome things that have nothing to do with you.
Absolutely. Every
on
day.
A daily basis. Like,
Absolutely.
what do you feel like that does? Has that ever plagued you a little bit in a space where you feel like, hey, I needed to focus a little more to get through this?
The family that I had was, although I'm speaking highly about it, no one's perfect. Like, and I have a sister that I go head to head with, that I've made it through our relationship. There's nothing in the world that I can't face after dealing with Amber Clemons. But honestly, I learned through my struggles how to resolve situations, how to speak if I'm feeling a certain way, and how to listen if someone else is feeling a certain way, and then how to implement the certain tools to make sure it never happens again, to the best of my ability. Like, it's hard, but it's still, I still believe it's a choice. So you can choose to resort to exactly how you feel in a moment and go to a dark place, or you can choose, well, what's the result that I want, and work backwards from the result. So if we're in an argument, it might feel better for me to be right. It might feel better for you to be right, but it's like in the back of my head, I'm like, well, is this relationship worth me losing my brother over something that I won't even remember in about 5 or 10 minutes, you know?
That's so true. In general, what do you consider being a friend?
Oh, just being a person that's there for someone when they need it. Like being a listening ear, being someone that can give advice, being a shoulder to cry on, and a shoulder that, being a shoulder to cry on when necessary, and just being someone that's there for someone. I have been blessed to have a lot of different friends, but it's a real important and impactful thing for me to say that I'm someone's friend, because I take it with a huge responsibility that I'm like, you're an extension of me. So I think a friend is an extension of you.
That's awesome. And as you've already told us, you consider yourself a mental health advocate. What would you just leave for the young adults? What's the message you leave for them as far as that
It's going to be
space?
okay. It's going to be all right. I know you may be going through something that seems like it is world ending, but if you're breathing, you have a chance. That's what I leave with.
Promise not to make a promise I can't keep. I never do that to you, so please don't do it to me. I never